Hi everyone, welcome to Cheltenham Chart 6, and in today's episode we're going to talk about the comments, one from Liam Firkin, which is in with one from Abel Robert on Twitter, then a question that someone asked me who watches the videos and just asked me in the street. I'll talk about it first actually, and then we'll go on to the UK horses that ran last week, the Irish horses who ran last week, and then a bit of a rant at the end about the opening show that was on when they asked about the Henderson horse being taken out of Tingle Creek. So I was asked in the street, if you could interview anybody, who would you interview? For Cheltenham Chat. And I said, well, I wouldn't really want a trainer because I don't know if they really tell, they tell you, oh, this horse is well and this horse is going well at home, etc, etc, etc. But you're not going to get the 20, they're not going to say, oh, but we've got this handicap block that we've been holding back all season, he's 25 to 1, and once the yard have all backed it, so you might as well get on yourself now. They're not going to tell me that. So who would I do? Who would I interview if I could? I tell you who I would like. I'd want to interview. I'd want to interview either Willie Mullins, travelling head lad, Gordon Elliott's travelling head girl, or Henry de Bromhead's, to see the logistics involved in getting that amount of horses to Cheltenham, on the lorries, on the boat, on the Cheltenham, getting work riders for them all, etc, etc. How much interaction, how much does the trainer do, how much do they do, how many people do they have under them, etc, etc. That for me would be an interesting interview I would love to do with someone. And if any of them want to come on, they can give me a shout on Twitter at MarkMackay67. And I interact with a lot of my people through Twitter. And Abel Robert asked about why I have there's a lack of bets now. I'm not sure if he was being a wee bit tongue-in-cheek or not, but and then Liam Firkin talked about, should we be betting on Betfair? Now, it's hard to get bets on. Even as a break-even punter, you're going to get restricted by bookmakers, lose your accounts, etc. And then you're in the lap of the gods trying to get a bet off. Because the bet you want to put off may be with a bookmaker you haven't got an account with. Now, if I'm trying to get a decent bet on a horse, I'm not putting a bet on here because I've put a fiver on. I'm putting a decent amount on. And if I can't get on at 16 to 1, and the next price down is 12 to 1, I'm losing a quarter of the price and I'm raging, and I want that 16 to 1, and I'm going to have to find a way of getting it. And it's like phoning mates, if you got an account with them, etc, etc. So just taking Tell Me Something Girl as an example, the price never moved on Betfair. The price was 11 for the whole time I tried to get my bet off. Now it was available at the equivalent of 17 on Bet365, 15 on Sky Bet, and 13 on Unibet. So I'm not wanting 11, and it's only offering me like 13 quid anyway. So basically the liquidity isn't there, and it simply isn't worthwhile to try and bet on Betfair at this stage in the season anti-post. So that's the answer to the question. It's simply not viable to be betting on Betfair, and it's fairly similar with most horses on Betfair. You can't really get very much on. You may get the odd bit of value, but it won't be for a lot of money, and it's usually on a horse who's probably not run well, or not run well a few times, and you probably are taking a real Hail Mary, and you're probably not going to get a lot on it. So for me, I think it's bookmaker only at the moment for anti-post bets. So now I'll get on to the British runners from last week. This is my view on the English horses that ran last week. Now it has to be my view, and I try to put it up before I see other people's view, because I think if you see other people's view, then if you have been impressed with a horse and then a big name pundit or someone who you think's a good pundit says that they weren't so impressed, you actually get swayed by that opinion, and that's why I like to get my opinion out quite quick. Like last week on, I was impressed with Hall of Games, and I saw a lot of very good punters who did not agree with me. And that's, for me, making it more fun for me. that I have to put my own opinion out. And I am still impressed with Hall of Games, but I'm getting on to the British runners last week. John Bon created a deep impression. He was extremely impressive in his win. He's 72 for the Supreme, and I feel that's too short myself because there are a lot of good horses to come out yet. But in saying that, being related to Duvan, being trained by Nicky Henderson, who's got a good record in Supreme, winning a race like that, a lot of where Henderson sends a lot of his good horses, it does have the feel of he could be a very good horse. But at 72, you're looking at his potential and thinking, that he's 72 to beat Kilcratzer, Gerhard, Three Stripe Life, etc. And I'd rather see what they could do first before I would be getting involved. But that doesn't detract from a really good performance in a farcical race, because they went no gallop, etc. But at the end of the day, he created a deep impression on me, but I couldn't touch him for the Supreme till I've seen the other horses come out. On the same day, Thomas Darby, maybe 3 miles is his trip. We backed him last year for the Coral Cap on the videos. It was only a small bet, but he ran no race at all, and yet he's come out and he's beaten some good rivals in this. Was it a good race? I'm not so sure. Will he win a Stayers hurdle? I don't think so. I'm not sure his Cheltenham record's brilliant. Paisley Park was an extreme disappointment in this race, and I want to go through the horses, like, not in chronological order today, because I have to say that another horse who was really, really poor was Eclat de Rire, who was on my radar horses video, which is looking really bad at the moment. And that's why when I'm putting big bets on, I want to be sure. I want to see how these horses are going to run against decent rivals. Eclat de Rire's run was so bad. I can't take this as his real running. And on the ropes wasn't great either, so all in all, the Ladbrokes Trophy was a really difficult race for me. I was disappointed as well with Epatante, who I thought was going to run away with the fighting fifth, and she's just not gone through with it for some reason. I thought she was going to go 2, 3, 4 lengths clear, and she's just plodded on and eventually got caught into a dead heat with Not So Sleepy, and it makes the division look extremely weak now, and Honeysuckle looks to just have a sort of penalty with no goalkeeper, to be honest. It's just such a weak division, and it's so disappointing that she's going to have nothing to race against. And she's an extremely good horse as well, so with her power and the lack of opposition, it looks like it's going to be a bit of a non-event come Cheltenham. But the one English horse who was seriously impressive, I'm not sure about his price either for the Brown Advisory, but I did think Ahoy Senor was a nice winner. The only worry I've got is that did Mr. Invincible run his race? But in saying that, Ahoy Senor just kept going, grinding, and he was jumping a little right at the start, but he seemed to get better as the race went on. Now his jumping still can be brushed up. He's not the finished article by any means, but he's another of these horses like Hall of Games last week, where he's got an engine. He has a serious engine. I spoke to Robbie on Twitter about this horse, and he's very excited. He knows one of the owners, and he's on at good prices for the Brown Advisory. They think he could possibly turn into a Gold Cup horse. It's very exciting for a yard in Scotland to have a horse as good as this. And you can't dampen the excitement. I wouldn't think that 8-1's value, but he was very good. And if his jumping got better, he could be a serious player in the Brown Advisory. And I certainly couldn't put anyone off. I thought he was very good. He was possibly the most eye-catching horse for me in England this weekend. And now I'm going to talk about the Irish horses from the weekend at Fairyhouse. In Ireland, Gringo Dabrel beat Adamantly Chosen. I thought this was a better race than people will give it credit for. And I'm pretty sure that Adamantly Chosen was well fancied, so Gringo Darbrell's done well to win this, and I think they could be quite useful horses. Whether they're the top horses out of both yards, probably not, but they're both fairly useful, and I think they were both dark horses from the Elliott and Mullins yards. Grand G won nicely. Now she's 7-1 favourite for the Mare's Novice, and I suppose she's the first horse to really throw her hat in the ring for this race. She was a good bumper horse last season, and she looked quite impressive on the day. Probably my only eye catcher of the weekend was Roaring Potter in second, who flew up the straight, didn't seem to know really her job for much of the race, and I thought she was quite eye-catching. But Grand G, yeah, a rightful favourite for the Mare's Novice. Whether you want to go in and back her is up to you. I won't be backing anything in the Mare's Novice for quite a while yet, but it was a decent performance. Chemical Energy beat Lunar Display. Now, Lunar Display was out after being beaten by Hollow Games last week, and I think Hollow Games did it a bit easier than Chemical Energy had done it. Chemical Energy had boosted the form of My Mate Mozzie, but we'll talk about My Mate Mozzie in more depth when we talk about the Royal Bond. The Nice Guy won the bumper, and the bumper was the Willie Elliott bumper, and that was Gordon's late uncle. I think Gordon would have been trying to win this race, so I think the Nice Guy's put up a decent performance here to win, and he'll be quite interesting in a winners only bumper when he runs again. I suppose Sunday was the day that everybody was looking forward to, and I think maybe we should just talk about Honeysuckle first before we talk about the juvenile and the novice hurdler. And Honeysuckle is just a bit of a freak, and I have to say I'm happy that I was in on the show right from the start. I actually never put it up for the Mare's Novice Hurdle on the videos, but I was on her for the Mare's Novice Hurdle when she got that slight injury. But I did put it up the second year for the Mare's Hurdle very early in the season when I thought she was way overpriced at 5-1 to beat, actually 6-1 it might have been, to beat Benny Deju, which she did. And everyone said that at the time that Benny Deju got a poor ride, but I think in hindsight Honeysuckle would have won however she'd been ridden. And Rachel Blackmore really has got this knack of having horses in the right places, as she proved on the handicap winner later. She's starting to become the jockey who is always in the right place, and like that's very, very useful in the big races, because I've laid into Townend for his ride on Kilcrip, but Rachel really doesn't seem to make a lot of mistakes, where the other jockeys, and I include Townend on this, and not just on Kilcrip either. I think like he gets beaten on horses he probably should. Probably the only two who don't are probably Rachel and Jack Kennedy. I think both of them are very, very good. So Honeysuckle was superb, and it was just another mighty performance from her, but the race was marred by the shocking injury to Latest Exhibition, and for a smaller yard like Paul Nolan to lose their absolute superstar horse was heartbreaking. I have to say, as soon as I saw it, I stopped really. What I knew Honeysuckle was going to win at that stage of the race, but for me, I couldn't really watch the rest of the race after seeing the injury to Latest Exhibition. But you only have to talk about the horses who won a lot of the time. I feel just heartsore for that yard that they've lost their best horse, and it was a race that really was marred by that injury for me. Phil Dor won. Was it a performance of a 4-1 shot for the Triumph Hurdle though? It was reasonable performance, and I think the runner-up was a good horse as well, but this horse is now 4-1, 9-2, which is half the price Anna here was for an utterly devastating display when he won this race last year, and he was 8-1 for the Triumph, yet this horse is 4-1, and that just shows what the grip that the bookmakers have got on punters. And for all that he was good and that I think the second horse was useful, I don't think it's a 4-1 shot for the Triumph, not in my opinion. And I know he won Cozy enough, but not 4-1 for the Triumph Cozy, I don't think. Now, I thought the Royal Blonde and the Drinmore were disappointing, so hopefully I make my videos close to first as I can so that I don't have to watch other people's and realise that my opinion might not be right. I want to put my opinion out, and I thought both were deeply disappointing races. The Royal Blonde was just a mess. I think there's a lot of jockeys would want to have this race again. I don't understand the tactics on My Mate Mozzie or Mighty Potter, both of whom had looked like horses who possibly might need even a little bit further than 2 miles, and just to let the race develop into a crawl and a sprint was craziness from both jockeys. My Mate Mozzie probably lost the race with a bad jump at the last, but really I don't think the race was run to suit the horse. Mighty Potter was just, I really don't understand what was going on with this horse, why he was in behind, and it was a mess. It was a real mess and a disappointing race, and I think the only winners are probably sitting in their box in close satin, and that is Dysart Dynamo, Sir Gerard and Kilcrap, because it's disappointing that My Mate Mozzie couldn't put probably Willie Mallon's 5th or 6th string novice hurdler away, and he will be smiling tonight, I would imagine. It was pretty similar in the Drinmore. It was almost like no one wanted to win. Fury Road should have won. Gabby Knuckle had 3 bad jumps in the last 4. Lifetime Ambitions jumped nowhere near like he did at Down Royal. He never looked comfortable from the first jump for me, and Beacon Edge, well, Cape Gentleman's fallen, but Beacon Edge is coming stone the race late on, but I really wouldn't read a lot into this for him. I don't think Bob Ollinger's shaking in his boots watching this. For me, it was disappointing again. That's all you can say about this race. I thought the Drinmore was a disappointing race, and the Royal Bond. So, just to finish on the Irish racing, Honeysuckle was a devastating winner in a race marred by horrific injury. Phil Dorr was adequate, but not a 4-to-1 shot for the triumph, in my opinion, and the Drinmore and Royal Bond were just, well, I just thought they were inadequate races, really. I don't think we saw too much in either race, if I'm truthful. And so I'll just get finally on to my last comment. The final comment I want to make today was something I asked the Bar Stewards inquiry, and it was about this debacle with Henderson saying that Shiskin wasn't running in the Tingle Creek. Now, I really couldn't care less if Shiskin runs or not, but I do have to give my view because I asked them. Now, it was in response to the way Fitzgerald, Chapman and Walsh responded to Ollie Bell about, British racing, the Tingle Creek, etc. And to me, it's not about Shiskin, really. It's about the fact that the British trainers were beaten 23-5 last season at Cheltenham Festival, and the Irish horses just ran amok. Now, today in the Drinmore and in the Royal Bond, etc., the top trainers were running their horses against each other, and some of those horses, were really taking on horses who were going to give them a real race. And that's fine, and the Irish horses were happy to do that. But it seems like in the UK we're going to keep giving out 2, 3, 4 horse races in the better races all season until Cheltenham. Not only are our horses not battle hardened, they're also running in very weak affairs for almost the entire season, and then coming against the top Irish horses who are as good or better than them, and they're not battle hardened, they're soft, they're wrapped in cotton wool all season. Now, Nicky will point to the fact that Shiskin won twice at the festival, and him and Joe Donnelly are perfectly entitled to run the horse where they want. And if he stays sound for the next 4 months and wins the champion chase, then Nicky's vindicated. But I just feel that when you're getting beat 23-5, I would be doing everything if I had a top 2 mile chaser to be trying to win the Tingle Creek. Now, Willie says Chapman Persois coming over. Willie's stringer way behind at the moment. There's no guarantee he's taking Chapman Persois over or an Ergamine. And even if he does, they could be, a little bit short. And if I had Newbie Negra, I'd probably want to go for it. If I had a decent 2 mile chaser, I would want to try and win it, because I'd be thinking, well, you know, if I get beaten the champion chase, at least I won a Tingle Creek. My owner's got the prize money from the Tingle Creek. But when Ollie Bell was asking these questions, he was just absolutely dismissed by Fitzgerald, who I have not a lot of time for at all. And I'm giving my view here. Now, he's given his view on the television, and I really didn't like it. There's been a few times where I've watched Fitzgerald on the television giving views that I really don't like, and I'm not paid for my view, and he is paid for his, but he's also paid by a bookmaker. And I noted that all three pundits on there were actually paid by a bookmaker. So these three puppets are like paid by Paddy Power's puppets. They're also paid by ITV. Walsh is on RTV, and Chapman's on ATR. So they're on an absolute just king's ransom. And are they that good? I mean, Ruby Walsh can analyse a race very well. He's an absolutely shocking tipster, and like he's very, very arrogant. Chapman stealing a living, and Fitzgerald, I don't even want to start on my view of Fitzgerald. Now, ITV is trying to, they're trying to get people who watch Coronation Street and Emmerdale to watch horse racing. So it's a turn off for me right from the start. But really, I don't think these people are encouraging people into racing. Maybe they are, not in my opinion, but I think, are we really encouraging people into racing by putting on dross 2-3 horse race for the entire season until we get to Cheltenham? I don't think we are. And I do worry that we're not going to have a Cheltenham Festival in 10 years, because in 10 years, if you continue to put on a product where there's only 2 and 3 runners in a grade 1, and you're having to take that money from the levy to keep horse racing going, I'm not really sure that you will have National Hunt horse racing in 10 years. And that's the worry for me. It's all very well to wrap your horses in cotton wool, but at the end of the day, when you're getting absolutely trounced on the big stage, why not run them on the slightly smaller stage? That's just my opinion. I'd love to hear yours. I've probably gone on a bit too long in this episode this week, but I wanted to put my views up. If any of the head lads from De Bromhead, Elliot or Mullins want to come on and tell me about the logistics of going to Cheltenham, that would be great. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for all the support. Sorry for not responding to the comments last week. I will get to it. Thanks for watching tonight's show. Bye for now.